Before I get into today's video of a bit of a unique topic, just letting you guys know to follow me on Twitter. The link is in the description below. The Twitter handle is @JacksonKruger. Come over, say hi, and anyways, back to your regularly scheduled video. Alright, so bit of an interesting, unique, different video that I'm going to be doing. I actually got this idea from, if anyone's a hockey fan, the hockey guy on YouTube. He did this with hockey teams, and I thought, oh, that's a good idea. So everyone make sure you, subscribe to the hockey guy if you're a hockey fan. If you're a hockey fan, you probably are already. But yeah, I figured this could be a fun video, so I'm going to give my crack at it. The way it's going to work is I'm just power ranking the teams from worst to greatest in terms of how much pressure is on them to win a Super Bowl in 2021. I guess technically 2022, but the 2021 season. So without further ado, let's just get into it. And what I'm going to do to start off is there's 13 teams that I feel like there is just no pressure to win a Super Bowl. So we're going to kind of lightning round through them right off the bat. So yeah, like right here, you have number 32, the Houston Texans. I mean, let's just be honest. We would all be stunned if the Houston Texans won the Super Bowl. That would be like the craziest upset in sports history if they found a way to win the Super Bowl. So clearly there's no pressure on them. You have teams like, I would say, the Jets, the Jaguars, the Eagles, who, we can even throw the Lions in there, who are like clearly rebuilding. I don't think anyone's expecting them to be good this year. And then you go up to some teams like the Cincinnati Bengals, who I feel like you can maybe argue, okay, it's been a couple seasons and they still haven't really taken that next step. But to me, there is clearly maybe some playoff pressure. There's not Super Bowl pressure, I don't think. Then you have teams like the Falcons, the Bears, the Broncos, who are, kind of these, I would say, a bit stuck in mediocrity, where maybe they're not going to be quite even mediocre this year. But I would still say that they're kind of in that vein of, again, if any of these teams ended up winning a Super Bowl, we'd be shocked. And all of these teams, I feel like, if they don't win a Super Bowl this year, they're not screwed. They can just, move some stuff. Maybe you could argue, like, for the coaching staff for the Bears, that's a bit of pressure. But, in terms of the actual, like, team as a whole, I wouldn't say so. You have the Panthers, and I would say Panthers, Giants, Chargers are, again, they're kind of all in that same boat of they have young players, and the hope with those, really all three of those, I guess the hope with the Panthers and Giants is that their quarterbacks play well. That's what you're hoping for. It's a good season if that happens. That's the pressure. The Chargers, a little bit more, and like Chargers and Saints, I could see, like, I can envision a scenario where everything goes right for both of those teams and they win the Super Bowl. Like, I can envision that in my head. I don't think it's going to happen, though, and I don't think most people think it's going to happen. I would say that there's some playoff pressure on the Chargers, and I would say that there is some pressure with the Saints just simply because they've been so good and for a 4-year stretch. But I think last year was the year that the Saints had the pressure. Once Drew Brees is gone, I think that pressure has kind of deflated, which is why they're on this list. All right, so next 5. To me, these are teams that they do have some pressure, but again, is it Super Bowl pressure? Maybe a little bit. But like, for example, the Miami Dolphins, who are here at 19, the Miami Dolphins, they have some pressure for sure. But again, I feel like it's more playoff pressure for them. You would like to see them win a Super Bowl eventually. And again, they did have success last year with 10 wins. But to me, the pressure is on for them to make the postseason. I think if they make the postseason and then, maybe even win it, maybe they have to win a playoff game as well. But if they do that, I think the pressure is off. For Washington, it's similar, I would say, because the quarterback position is so up in the air for Washington that if they just have good quarterback play, I think they feel good. And with Fitzpatrick, they'll probably get at least solid quarterback play. So I would actually say that Washington maybe should have a bit more pressure than they actually do. But it does feel like a lot of people are kind of saying, if things go well for them, things go well for them. So again, some pressure. How much, though, I just don't know. Number 17, the Arizona Cardinals here. Again, the Cardinals have playoff pressure. And if they don't make the playoffs, Kingsbury is done. The Cardinals do have a little bit of, I would say, Super Bowl winning pressure, just given their organization having never won one. But again, I guess this whole category could kind of be put into these are teams that have to make the playoffs. But if the Cardinals made the playoffs, and I would say, again, it feels like you have to win a playoff game probably, but if they win a playoff game, I think Cardinals fans are happy and looking forward to the future. So that's really where the pressure is for them. For the Colts, again, it's the whole quarterback thing, right? Of this team is so talented, but for them, if Carson Wentz plays well, even if they miss the playoffs, like let's say Carson Wentz misses the first half of the season, but then the last 8 games plays well, they win 9 games and miss the postseason, I think Colts fans are thrilled with that because then you have hope for the future. So again, Super Bowl pressure is tough. And same thing with the Minnesota Vikings, I would say, again, they're the Vikings, so to have that inherent pressure just from that. But in terms of this actual team, I don't know how many people are really saying this team should win a Super Bowl, but I think there is some pressure there because I think Kirk Cousins has this narrative of he, solid, but you're not going to win a Super Bowl with him. So for him, there's certainly a lot of pressure, I would say, to win a Super Bowl. But I also, and maybe for Mike Zimmer, that's the case. But for this season, how much Super Bowl pressure is there? I don't know. Maybe in the future, like there is pressure on Kirk Cousins. That's why they are in the top half, but that's why I just have them at 15. Okay, next 5, we have the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders, there's a ton of pressure to, again, make the postseason. If they don't make the postseason, we could see John Gruden get fired, halfway through a $100 million contract, which is crazy. Again, the number was so high because they had to get him out of the broadcast booth. So, it's not like it counts against the cap or anything. So who really cares what the number is? But for John Gruden, this is a lot of pressure. I do think the Raiders, even just making the playoffs could be considered a disappointment because they've been stuck in mediocrity. So winning a Super Bowl would obviously go a huge way for them. I just don't know how many people realistically think that they will win the Super Bowl this year. But there's definitely pressure on that organization to at least have some success. For the 49ers, they are kind of a weird spot right here where they didn't have a ton of success last year. They ended up picking 3rd overall, although that was due to trading up. They earned a number 12 pick. But at the same time, it was largely due to injuries. And I think for Kyle Shanahan, there's just going to be a ton of pressure on him to win another Super Bowl. Because, the last 2 Super Bowls didn't go well. They obviously blew big leads in both of them. Blew, the biggest lead in NFL history in the Super Bowl and then tied for the biggest lead in the Super Bowl with the 49ers. So for Shanahan, a ton of pressure. For the rest of the team, I don't know how much pressure, but for him, he's got to win one. But again, it doesn't necessarily have to be this year, and they are kind of building for the future, so that's why it's a little bit lower. For the number 12, this is going to be a bit surprising, having the Cowboys this high, I think. But again, it's not power ranking which teams I think will win the Super Bowl. It's who has the most pressure, and there's no doubt that Dallas always has a ton of pressure. There's very few teams that can miss the playoffs, and then if they lost in the Super Bowl, everyone would make fun of them. Dallas is one of those teams because people, love him or hate him. People like to talk about him. So that just creates some pressure right there. So it's less about the team. You can maybe say with Mike McCarthy a little bit, given, how poorly things went at the end of his tenure in Green Bay and then not a great first season in Dallas. And maybe with Dak Prescott, once he signs that big contract, everyone says, well, how is this going to help you win a Super Bowl? So there's some added pressure there as well. So we're getting into the teams where there is like some legitimate pressure. Number 11, it's the Patriots, who again, they're a little bit lower just because I don't know how much people actually expect them to win the Super Bowl this year. But obviously, with the team that's one spot ahead of them, winning it last year with Tom Brady, I think that there is some added pressure again from the media, from the fans, maybe the locker room, doesn't care about it. But in terms of that stuff, absolutely there's some added pressure. And for Bill Belichick, I think it would go a long way if he then won a Super Bowl right after Brady did to kind of establish both of their legacies in a way. I mean, let's be honest. They don't have to establish much. Belichick has 8 Super Bowl rings. Brady has 7. So I think they're both fine either way. But number 10, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And some people could say, well, why only 10? I think some people could say, well, why all the way up to 10, right? Because on one hand, there's no pressure. You just won it last year. If they win 3 games next year, you won a Super Bowl. It is what it is. The other hand, though, I think the real way pressure has come in is this whole, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, best roster ever assembled. People saying things like, could this team go 17-0? Personally, I think that's a really good roster. I'm not sure I'd go that far personally, but, it's a good roster. And I think that when you have a chance to win a Super Bowl and when you have no immediate future plans lined up, their goal is win now, I do think it matters. And also a little bit of added pressure comes in with just the success Tampa Bay sports has had. I mean, the Lightning won back-to-back. I think now Tampa Bay fans, myself included, are kind of like, well, you got to win back-to-back now too, right? That's how it works. Not really, but that's how I hope it works. Okay, next 5. We're going to do the Browns and Bills together because they're so similar. They're two teams who kind of last year took that next step and went from being a team with maybe some potential to like, oh no, they're legit, they're championship contenders, and the Browns added a lot more talent. I do think that both of these teams have a lot of pressure. I think just because the Bills made it farther, there's a little bit more. But I would also say the reason why they're both a little bit lower is simply because if they don't win it this year, there's hope for the future. Whereas some of these teams above them, there's other factors that I think add more pressure. So like, for example, number 7, the Baltimore Ravens, a big reason why I have them a little bit higher, even though they're kind of in a similar boat, is just this whole Lamar Jackson can't get it done in the playoffs, right? Lamar Jackson has had the highest high out of all 3 of these young quarterbacks who were selected in the same draft. He won an MVP, but then gets knocked out of the first round, or technically the second round, but the first playoff game he played in, it did not go well. Actually, that was the second playoff game he played in because the year before they made the playoffs, lost that one. So that 1-3 postseason record is tough. And even if they got a bye, for example, the only way for him to get that record, above 500 would be to win the Super Bowl. So that's kind of why I do feel like there is pressure. But even if they made the Super Bowl, I think that would change some people's minds. But the reality is, he's a guy where until he wins a Super Bowl, people are going to say that about him. You also have the Rams, there's pressure because they have no draft picks for ever. So they need to win a Super Bowl, and they need to win it quickly. So that's why there's a lot of pressure. This Sean McVay experiment has been so compelling to watch, and it's had some success, but it hasn't quite gotten them over the hump. They lost to Green Bay last year. Obviously, they made the Super Bowl, but were they really the second best team that year? I don't know. Not when Todd Gurley was hurt. They were at the beginning of the season, and maybe if Todd Gurley stays healthy, they win that Super Bowl. But, time is a little bit, they're on the clock, let's say. It's not running out, but they could really use a Super Bowl now. And they just got Matt Stafford, so they can actually win it too. That's kind of why there's a lot of pressure. Number 5, it's the Seahawks. The Seahawks have pressure because, Russell Wilson came out and said he kind of wanted out, basically. So there's a lot of pressure in that regard, because if Russell Wilson is frustrated with the team, and I guess he never said he wanted out. I should take that back. That's not what he said. He said he was frustrated and he wanted more of an insight on stuff. So, to me, I think a lot of people sort of make that connection of, does he want to go somewhere else? But the reality is, he's in Seattle. I think Seattle could feel a lot better if they win a Super Bowl, get Russell Wilson his second ring, and really it would be his first ring since he's been elite. His first ring he got, he was a game manager that year. He wasn't a superstar. So getting sort of a ring that would kind of make people say, okay, he really earned that one. You can't say, well, there was beast mode, there was, all these other stuff. No, he really would earn it. If he wins one with one of these rosters, playing the way he's been playing for the past, 7 years or so. All right, so next 3, we'll do number 1 by itself. We have the Tennessee Titans, who I think there's a lot of pressure because we don't know how many years Derrick Henry has left. Running backs fall off a cliff, and without him, this is a different football team. It just is. They also went out and traded for Julio Jones, sort of an aging superstar, and they're a team that can legit win it this year. So we don't know how many years they have left, but we know that they could win it this year. That's, to me, a perfect recipe for a team with a lot of pressure. Number 3 is a bit of maybe a surprise because they're not the most talented team. I think out of all of the, maybe even top 10 teams, they're not even close to a lot of these other teams in talent. But they're still a team that I would say has a chance. They did win their division last year, which is not an easy division to win. I know the playoff game didn't go well, but, part of that was just Roethlisberger completely imploded in the first quarter, and if that doesn't happen, then it's a different game in my opinion. So there's that. Again, I'm not saying I think they're going to win the Super Bowl, but the real reason there's pressure, I would say, was the fact that they're sticking with Ben Roethlisberger, and they drafted Najee Harris in the first round. Typically, drafting a running back in the first round is thought of as a win-now move. So if they're trying to win right now, it makes sense. I don't hate that decision whatsoever. I don't know if they're going to win a Super Bowl, but there's a lot of pressure on them to do so because how many years does Roethlisberger have left? We just don't know. Number 2 is the Kansas City Chiefs, who were, they finished second in the league last year by losing the Super Bowl to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I think that if they don't win the Super Bowl this year, it's sort of thought of as, oh no, are we the Seattle Seahawks? Were we about to be the next dynasty and then it didn't work out? If they win a Super Bowl, they can put that to bed. Say 2 out of 3, now we're talking dynasty a little bit. Whereas you would still have to probably win another one to really be a dynasty. But now that conversation is a thing. Whereas if they don't, it's still possible, but it becomes a lot more difficult. So I think this is a huge deal. And this is another team where if they lose the Super Bowl, it's a bad season for them. That's kind of the way I'm viewing it. And to me, you could argue that with a lot of teams. You could argue that with Pittsburgh, with Tennessee, with Seattle, with the Rams, maybe even the Ravens, Bills, and Browns, I would say. So all those top 9, I would say you could make that argument. Even the Buccaneers. So there's a lot of teams that losing the Super Bowl is a bad season for them. But Kansas City and the team I have at number 1 just feels like an obvious, it's not just a bad season. You feel really bad about it. It's not like that wasn't great. It's like oh no, how did we not win the Super Bowl? Because they're that talented and there's that much pressure on them. And number 1, it's the Green Bay Packers. Of course, it's the Green Bay Packers. All of this drama surrounding the offseason with Aaron Rodgers, and how many people are saying Aaron Rodgers, just can't get it done. He just only won 1 Super Bowl. He's just not that great of a playoff performer. All those NFC Championship losses. Then him and Devontae Adams kind of say the last dance a little bit when they tweeted out a screen cap of Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. So in the last dance, you can't lose, right? You got to win it. And plus, for the Green Bay Packers, if Aaron Rodgers wins the Super Bowl this year, people will still criticize the Jordan Love pick, but you can say, hey, we built for the future and we still got a ring with Rodgers. It was the best of both worlds. If they don't, even if Jordan Love is great, people are always going to bring up they had 2 really good teams and weren't able to actually win the Super Bowl, and maybe if they use that draft pick to get a good player, whether that's just trading for a guy or keeping a guy, that could have made a difference. It really could have. So that's just the pressure they have on them. And this isn't just the most pressure of this season. This is the most pressure I think a team has had on them in quite some time. There is just pressure on pressure on pressure. And it'll be interesting to see what they do about it. So, yeah, that's my list, 32 through 1. Let me know. Where do you agree? Where do you disagree? Always love hearing from you. And, of course, as always, thanks for watching.